having a beer at a bar when I was 20-something, and 27 years later, with multiple degrees, he hadn't figured it out yet. And he was retired, and he came here with the idea of, what am I going to do in retirement? That's why I came here. But he's not starving to death like most people that come here. So, he doesn't have generational wealth money, and he made the mention of the fact his daughter goes to St. Andrews, or she graduated now, 3 or 4 years at St. Andrews. He never went to visit the school. Now some old psychopath in a castle that lives down the road from me, now you're going to come and visit me in school. In that regard, he had his priorities right. Okay, the takeaways are, number one, for him, is that notwithstanding his politically correct methodologies that he had practiced for 27 years and been very successful, you don't have to go through all that. Bless you. And next, he talked about motivated seller, even in the big companies. And when the kids go after the big companies first, and I don't recommend that. Occasionally I do, but I don't normally recommend that. They lose sight that even big companies are in a motivated selling mode, or can be. Just as I gave you the example this morning, 2 private equity firms, which you wouldn't think could be motivated sellers, can be, because they got it wrong. Or their emphasis, their shift in their risk portfolio. Now, virtually all the banks you're going to talk to are going to, if they've been successful in healthcare, and you just saw in the Wall Street Journal, they just did a $3 billion healthcare deal in the tombstones. They put those ads in the newspapers. Okay, they're in healthcare. Then you narrow it down into your area of healthcare, bedpans. Not everybody's in bedpans because it's the least glamorous, But so they're in that area. That they they say bedpans is a deal. But then, remember I told you earlier today that what are the lending parameters? 3 to 5 times EBITDA, 5 to 7 times, whatever. Now his area of tech, the cloud and that stuff, is high multiples. Super high multiples. Okay. So no matter, even though it has positive cash flow, motivated sellers, and he's narrowed it down from 10 to 3, and he's working on closing 1 right now as we speak. Okay. They rarely will the cash flow cover the depth, as they say in Europe, service. So he's going to need another piece, Murph, another piece, and we'll talk about that later. And it's got a bridge financing, mezzanine financing.
So in this case, he's actively working banks, and he's also got some other financial partners.
Correct.
I'm probably running into that too.
Correct. Okay, and so that other bridge financing can come from a lot, and we'll talk about it more during the week. But it can come from a lot of different areas. There are people that specialize in mezzanine financing, bridge. Okay, you just type in mezzanine, and a plethora of names will pop up. They normally, if you can get money from a regular bank at 4, 5, 6%, mezz or bridge financing is going to cost you 9, 10, 11, 12%. Roughly speaking, twice as much. But it's for a short period of time. You're borrowing this money for 2, 3 years, okay, with the idea that you want to refinance it as quickly as possible. And when we get to it, and the key to bridge financing, mezzanine financing, gap financing is no prepayment penalty. No prepayment penalty. So if you can pay it off in 7 months, and it's a 3-year piece of paper, you don't have to pay, 4 points or 5 points, or God knows that some of the prepayment penalties are pretty hefty. So you get bridge financing, and so that's what he's looking, the last piece. The banks are crazy for the deal. He's got some world-class, well, a lot of guys have world-class, but he's got some world-class IT guys, some of the names you'd recognize. Because, they some of them wonder why the old man never went out on his own. I don't think he's so old, young man to me, but I mean, why the old man never did it on his own, and so now he's doing it on his own. Okay, the next takeaway is that he talked about immersion. Well, he said default's a bitch. And he doesn't swear. That's a real bad word for him when he says bitch, Default's a bitch. But default's a motherfucker is what it is. Because when you go back there and your significant other and your kids are whining and, it's horrid. That's why a lot of the guys go out and get an office. You don't have any money to go out and get a goddamn office. But a lot of guys go out to these places where you can rent an office, and they got a boardroom and all that shit. Okay, they do that. Because the default at home is so horrible. Now, if you've got a separate place, and we're going to talk about how to set up the office later on, but you got a separate place, some people, they actually go out in the garage to be separated. Because he said default's a bitch, he's right. Let me get back to immersion. Old guy, and for him to learn new tricks isn't easy. But old dogs can learn new tricks. He starts with the credos, and you're going to get those affirmations, and we're going to show you how to write those up. And he does it. We have kids that have been through the seminar since we started keeping track since August of 2010 that say their affirmations 10 times a day. 10 times a day. I only did it twice a day. I did it in the morning when I woke up, and I did it in the evening before I went to bed. I still say them in the evening before I go to bed, and I say them with my prayers. I fall asleep saying my prayers, which when I told the fucking the SEAL guys, they looked at me like I was fucking I don't know what they looked like. And I'm sure in the foxhole they were saying their fucking prayers too. So but maybe that's the only time they ever said their prayers. Okay, the other thing that stood out to me was that even a guy's experiences, he had 10 in the sales funnel. Buying funnel. Them selling 10, and he's narrowed it down to 3. Remember, it's a numbers game. On just about all aspects of the QLA program, it's a numbers game. You want to, because not everybody's going to say yes. And as Frank said earlier in the other webinar, that they say, I'll be ready in a year. He calls them back in a month. That's just their coping mechanism to push you off when they say, I'm thinking about it in a year. The fact that they say they're thinking about it now, they just say, fuck you, don't bother me anymore. I used to call those people back anyway. You can't hurt my feelings. The only way he hurt me is hit me with a brick. And I got hit with a brick once. But I'll tell you that story when we're out on the YouTube. I got hit with a brick one time. By a woman. Now, if I was today, I'd go to fucking CNN and somebody would have had a camera, right? Right. Fuck. Fucking hit me with a brick as I'm walking out. Fucking bitch. But anyway, it's a whole other story. Anyway, but he is in the program. Okay, now your takeaways from him.
Practicing meetings. Being prepared.
Oh, yeah. Preparation. And I practice 1 hour, at least 1 hour for every hour that I'm with you. I practice an hour before you got here. So I practice 50, 60 hours. And I could give this seminar in a coma. Literally in a fucking coma. Because I know your questions. They're all the same retarded meathead questions. And they're all based because you're afraid. False expectations appearing real. You're afraid, It's the unknown you haven't done. I think 3 people asked him how he gets out of his fucking comfort zone. Okay? And you're not going to be, some of the guys go and skydive and jump, bungee jump, like stuff that I've done in recent years. But he was afraid of asking. See, before he had a big company behind him with a big balance sheet. That's a lot different. We've had guys from Goldman Sachs come in here and they piss their pants because they're not wearing the Superman Goldman Sachs shield, and they never had to worry about the money there. Well, now now will they still say yes to me when I don't have, the big company behind me? And now, for those of you that have never been with a big company, never had a big balance sheet, you don't know, but I've never really had that either. So, but he is going out there, he's pressing the flesh with people that would normally say no. But contrary to what you believe, or what you think, or what your in-laws told you, not that many people are out there asking. In 25 plus years of me doing this, we've only had, in the last 2 or 3 years, we've only had where you step on each other's feet happen 3 times in the last 4 or 5 years. And it's normally with someplace, a smaller country, a remote area, and you're both doing healthcare. And it's not for the acquisition candidates, it's for board members. Because if you're from Romania, there's only maybe 50 qualified guys and gals to be on a board. I mean, where the quality that you want, I want you to want. And so, 3 people building a board, you're going to call people that you called. But we've only had 1 acquisition candidate where one guy and another guy were going after the same company. And in 4 or 5 years, so that's not the problem, because there's only about 1/100% of the people on the planet are capable of doing this. So about 750,000 out of 7.5 billion people are capable of doing this. Not capable because intellectually they're not up to it, but emotionally they're not up to it, because we've had guys that start this and then their 9-year-old. This sounds shitty. 9-year-old daughter gets knocked up. I didn't know 9-year-old kids could get knocked up, but I now know they can't. Okay, now what kind of parenting was that guy? Well, that's a whole other story. Okay, but he dropped QLA like a hot turd, or cold turd, whatever. I guess they come out hot, so maybe a cold turd. Okay, but he was 3/4 down the field. Somebody's mother's going to die in this room. I guarantee it 100%. Now you got to, it's your choice. Some shit happens. That's what that's saying. And so, even though people are running down the field like, they're 20 yards from the next guy to tackle them, then they fall and step and strip on their dick and fall on their head, or they drop the ball. Shit happens, and I see it all the time. But I believe 99% of that, except for when your mother dies and stuff like that, it's self-sabotaging activity, because you don't believe you deserve the success. Most of the people that come through the seminar, and most of the people that are YouTubing us to death, are more afraid of success than they are failure. Because then you do it once. Well, are you a one-trick pony? Can you do it a second time? A third time? Now, thankfully, praise Allah, pan just down to the side of her head there to make sure that we say we got a fellow Muslim here. Okay, I've had a lot of successes. I've had too many to count. So when I fail, I am fucking mystified. What the fuck? And it's easy if I'm doing something with you to blame it on you. But no, I was there. I should have been able to. But sometimes your overriding instinct to self-sabotage yourself, even if I'm involved directly in the transaction, is greater than, because I'm not there every day, every minute. But, okay, what else about Deb?
Should we join Rotary?
Oh, okay. Rotary, improv, Toastmasters are all, depending on your level of communication skills. And I haven't talked to all of you, but you could all join. Maybe not improv, because improvisation is when they say, okay, this is a gold bar, sell it to me. That's beyond some of your capabilities, most of your capabilities in the room. But Rotary and Toastmasters for sure. Okay. Now, Toastmasters is terrific in some areas where all the shakers and movers are. Okay. Some places it's not as terrific, but it's still better than the class of people that you're hanging with. Yes, that should answer your question. And he had started, normally when you get out of university, it's one of the things in your business, they say join Rotary, join this. And so he hadn't been in Rotary probably in 20 years. And he's rejoined. But join a club you cannot afford. A club you cannot afford, okay? Now, he had already been a member of the Tangling Club in Singapore. And there's normally a social, not a social stroke business club. They don't call them just men's clubs anymore, okay? And they don't just call them business clubs anymore. Normally they're business stroke social. And again, that's because the weakness of manhood, basically, in my judgment. And so join a club. There's 4 or 5 clubs in the Los Angeles area that are all good. The California Club and the Jonathan Club are the 2 best. I belong to the Jonathan Club. They have world-renowned reputations. There's clubs in New York City. If you went to Harvard, Yale, Cornell, there's the Harvard Club, the Cornell Club, that kind of thing. If you went to Oxford or Cambridge, there's the Oxford-Cambridge Club. This doesn't apply to you guys, maybe for YouTube. If you went to University of Chicago, the alumni, for those of you that did, including YouTube, went to a school that you don't have to explain about. I mean, they have alumni associations. For those of you that are professional, like you're an accountant or a lawyer, there are associations. And all these are listed. I mean, you just have to, American Medical Association, American Dental Association, American Chiropractic Association. There's all kinds of fucking associations. And all of those are source of leads for board members in addition to LinkedIn. But 95% of the guys and gals that are recruited for our dream teams are from LinkedIn. 95%. And I said last night to somebody, it's the next level. You got to pay $100 a month, so you're not restricted to phone calls. Not phone calls, emails. So it's a club you can't afford, Toastmasters, Rotary, and for some of you, improv.
You had said in the beginning that you'd want to start out.
In the beginning today or beginning?
Like when we first start out. Okay. And to not be jumping after whales. What if, is it just as easy to do a deal for $250,000 or in a $100 million?
Well, a $2 billion deal is no different than a $2 million deal. But it's no different. I mean, you still go through the dream team, yada, yada, yada. The only difference is they're going to look to you who's got experience of running a $2 billion organization. They don't look as hard for a $250,000 deal. And the model was, when I started it, because I didn't have any money, is that I wanted to get 5 or 6 or 8 or 10, I thought 15 or 20 acquisitions under my belt. So each one, maybe I build up $300,000 equity in the first one, $700,000 in the second one, $1 million. So by the time I got 7 or 8 deals, I got $4 or $5 million equity. Okay? Then they don't ask where the fucking equity's coming from. Because that does come up. And the answer is, which is in the templates, either when they ask you where the money's coming up, or any kind of question that sounds like that, directly or indirectly through our board that's got 900 years experience, 375,000 deals under their belt. I'm exaggerating on the deals and the money, okay? Our accountants and our lawyers is where the money's going to come. Don't worry about the money. I mean, I used to carry a letter, which I don't have anymore, that from one of the biggest law firms in the world, Mr. Peña, to whom it may concern, and they don't give letters like that anymore, to whom it may concern, Daniel S. Peña Sr., in our 23 years experience of representing him, has never not financed the deal he started. I wore that letter out. I put plastic around it. And then they were sorry they gave me the fucking letter. Okay? Because I used, they think you're going to use it 3 times. I used it 3,000 times. I used to fax it. And fax machines, fax it. 300 a day. But I never not, and it's the truth, I never didn't complete a financing I've initiated. Never. To this day. Okay, YouTube. Thank you.